The Crimean War lasted from 1853 to 1856. The conflict involved Russia against the alliance of the French, the British, and the Ottoman Empire.
There were two major causes for the Crimean War. The first being control over the Christian minority residing under Ottoman rule, or the Christian Rayas. The Russian Empire was Orthodox Christian and wanted to be the protectorate of the Christians within the Ottoman Empire. However, the Catholic French would not relinquish control so easily. They also aimed to hold a place in power. This, of course, sparked conflict. The Ottomans in general did not want other groups in control of their people, so naturally they were resistant. The second major cause of the war was Russian expansion. Russia mainly wanted more control in the Black Sea region, in an attempt to gain a viable water port. This would allow them to challenge Britain's role as the major trading power of the Eastern Mediterranean. The British feared this breach of their sphere of influence, and the Ottomans did not want to lose territory, so they declared war.
In an attempt to gain access to the Mediterranean, Russia demanded control of Constantinople. These demands were quickly dismissed, and in July 1853, Russian troops poured into Turkish Moldavia and parts of Romania. In October, the Ottoman Empire responded with a declaration of war. The Turkish army set out to meet the Russians. They crossed the Danube River and defeated the Russians at the Battle of Old Tanitsa on November 4, 1853. A little less than a month later, the Russians destroyed a Turkish fleet based at Sinope in retaliation. The Russian success in the Black Sea was brief. However, because Britain and France, scared of a change to the balance of power, moved in to help the Turks. They deployed fleets into the Black Sea and declared war on Russia in late March of 1854. The fighting, however, was far from over. The Russians crossed the Danube and invaded Turkish Bulgaria. With permission from the Ottoman Empire, Austria prevented further destruction and drove Russia out of the Balkan provinces. Afterwards, the Allied forces of Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire deemed it necessary to destroy the Russian naval base of Sevastopol. This seemed the guaranteed way to reduce Russia's naval power in the Black Sea. The British, led by Lord Bragelonne, and the French, led by Marshal Armand de Saint-Arnaud, landed on an open beach around 30 miles north of Sevastopol. The Russian leader Menshikov failed to take advantage of the vulnerable landing and instead meets the Allied forces at the River Alma on the 20th of September 1854. Menshikov loses around 5,700 troops defending the river, a large amount compared to the Allies' losses, which only totaled to about 3,000. Menshikov was in serious trouble. He controlled only 30,700 troops at this point and faced around 49,000. He quickly pulled back to the safety of Sevastopol.
Lacking a steady stream of support, the Allies are forced to march around the base to the nearby ports of Balaklava and Kamish. When the two armies traveled around Sevastopol, Menshikov met up with reinforcements and prepared for a siege. The British take control of Balaklava and the French take Kamish. As they were not connected to support lines, the Allies also prepared for the upcoming siege. Before they took action, however, French Marshal Saint-Arnaud died of illness and was replaced by General François Canrobert. The offense continued and bombardment began on October 17th. The Russians tried multiple times to end the siege and break through the Allied offensive. The first on October 25th, 1854, called the Battle of Balaklava, was a strong victory for Russia. It gave the Russians firm control of the road connecting Sevastopol and Balaklava. The second attempt, however, was not so successful. On November 5th, the combined forces of Britain and France fought Russia in a large-scale battle called the Battle of Inkerman. The fight fell into chaos as neither side could control their troops. British soldier Charles Usherwood writes, "One could scarcely step along without treading upon the body of a dead or dying man." Russia suffered heavy losses, and it was the last major fight of the season, as neither attacker was prepared for a winter siege. Fighting resumed with Russia's desperate attempts to break the siege and Allied bombardments. French General Canrobert resigned and was replaced with the competent General Pelissier. On the 24th of May, the Allies captured Kirch, and with this completely severed Russian support lines. On September 8, 1855, the French executed a brutal and efficient attack to take the base. The loss of Sevastopol ended the war for Russia. The Treaty of Paris soon followed.
After achieving victory at Sevastopol, the French were congratulated and had leverage on the peacemaking situation that was to follow. France and Britain were allies in the war. but during its course had rekindled conflict from the Napoleonic Wars. Austria had taken on a role of armed mediation at the end of the Crimean War. The English public wanted to crush Russia with more war, and their Prime Minister Palmerston had similar interests. France wanted to use their current power to make peace quickly. Negotiations following Sevastopol revolved around 4 points, which Austria's Count Buol gave to France and England to approve before proposal to Russia. The points are as follows. Point 1. Russia will give up Bessarabia. Point 2. Freedom of commerce and travel of the Danube River. Point 3. Neutralization of the Black Sea. And finally, point 4. Christian Reyes kept immunity. Austria also proposed a triple alliance, which France agreed to, but Britain did not. France and Austria were content with just the base 4 points, but Palmerston did not want to make concessions and vied for more. Palmerston pressured Buol and Walewski, Napoleon's foreign minister, into agreeing to include Jews in point 4 and adding free commerce in the Black Sea to point 3. Palmerston also pushed hard for the demilitarization of the Åland Islands. Austria was finished compromising when Palmerston demanded the destruction of Russo-Turkish forces in Asia and refused to enforce it.
The loose triple alliance of France, Britain, and Austria gave their agreed-upon proposal to Russia at the end of 1855. The Tsar accepted all of the points, but tried to compromise on the first, offering Kars, the Turkish city they'd taken soon before, if the Allies would give up on point 1 and allow Russia to remain in Bessarabia. Buol demanded a yes or no answer from the Tsar before the 17th of January. The Tsar compromised to the 18th and ended up accepting the terms, to the shock of the world. Palmerston still attempted to push through the neutralization of the Åland Islands, but Buol and Walewski wouldn't communicate it to Russia, so Palmerston gave in to the Walewski Compromise. The convention for the writing of the treaty was chosen to be in Paris, and Walewski was chosen to be the president. Palmerston sent Clarendon, his foreign diplomat, who took an equally hard stance and made no concessions. Count Orlov was sent from Russia, and his instruction was to save the dignity of Russia. Orlov and Clarendon spoke and compromised on a demilitarization of the Åland Islands, making a separate agreement. Russia wanted to keep Kars under their control because it was their only point of leverage, but offered it up in exchange for Bessarabia. Clarendon didn't bite and took a hard stance on Bessarabia. Walewski went to Buol, proposing taking a stand for Bessarabia with Britain if Austria would pledge to go to war if fighting began again. Austria backed off quickly and stuck to their timid stance. Napoleon demanded Kars from Russia in exchange for part of Bessarabia, and a compromise line was soon drawn with Clarendon's help. The neutralization of the Black Sea was the most important part for all parties and was argued last. Russia was allowed police ships, and debate began on how many. Orlov and Walewski wanted 12 light vessels, but Clarendon protested and a compromise was made at 10. The debate over the Black Sea was summed up in Articles 11 through 14 in the final treaty. The treaty was signed on the 30th of March, 1856.
The Crimean War is considered to be the first modern conflict. A fight based from expansionism and religious differences shook the foundations of the Crimean Peninsula. It solidified the relationship between Britain and France, disrupted the balance of power, and left Austria alone and without allies. The Treaty of Paris, however brief, introduced a new era of peace and set the stage for the upcoming European turmoil.